Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Very Not Random. This is going to be episode 198. And today myself and Adrian were lucky enough to catch up with a Major League Soccer player, Nick Lima. He's played for various teams. He's been a member of the men's national team. We discuss strength and conditioning, soccer, life, all kinds of stuff. Really enjoyed the conversation. Hopefully you enjoyed as well. Of course, as always, if you'd like to help support the show, go to variednotrandom.com. Check out all the different cycles that we offer. There's all kinds of ones that fall under your first. Get your first fill in the blank. Strict pull-up, kipping pull-up, push-up, handstand push-up, toes to bar, first 5-foot handstand walk, all kinds of cool stuff. There's barbell programs to get you stronger on the barbell. There's a 1.5-mile run program, on-ramps for beginners with dumbbells, barbells, body weight, all uploaded to the btwb app. Super easy. Hopefully you enjoy them. On the other side of the house, if you own a gym, any kind of gym, fitness facility, you got to do all the stuff that is not sexy or flashy, but it's mission critical to running your business. Workout tracking, so your members know they're actually improving. Gym management, billing. btwb has got that all in one place now instead of you having to use multiple different services or platforms. Just go to btwb.com and check out the all-in-one solution if you're a gym owner. And if you're on some other workout tracking platform, my apologies. Come on over to btwb, sign yourself up, get all your members over there. Everyone's going to be stoked, and enjoy the show. Very Not Random, episode 198 with Nick Lima. All right, Nick, man, thanks for talking to Boz and I today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, guys. Excited to have a conversation with you.
Yeah, of course. And, to give some backstory, you're a professional soccer player that, you and I have a mutual friend. And the reason that you and I even crossed paths was however many weeks ago it was. I was actually pedaling on the Echo bike, just like in misery. And our mutual friend called me. So I blew it off and I waited till I got off the bike and I called back. I'm like, hey, what's up? He goes, oh man, I got this guy. You crush this workout. You gotta talk to him. Can I link you into a phone call? I'm like, yeah, sure. And you did Linchpin Test 5, anyone who's unfamiliar with that, it's 20 back squats at 225 pounds, a 2-mile run, and then another 20 back squats at 225 pounds. And man, if you do that workout in like sub 20, it's very, very respectable. And do you remember what was your time on that?
16 and change, or 16:22.
Oof. Oh man, and if you start to crunch the numbers on that, I know I asked you on the phone, do you remember you said ballpark, what did you do the 2-mile run in?
Oh, that one hurt. It was 12:20, something like that.
Wow.
I mean, knocked out 20 unbroken back squats, did a 12 and change 2-mile run, and then back to the
I got
barbell.
under a bar for the second 20.
Dude, that was smoking fast, and I was so blown away with that time. I was like, "What do you do?" And it's like, "Oh, you play soccer for a living?" I was like, "Professional soccer?" I was like, that's crazy. And we had never had a professional soccer player on the show, and so here we are. So again, thanks, man. We're really looking forward to just kind of picking your brain.
Well, as far as his workout goes, that's probably that's right in my wheelhouse and the only one I'm good at. Any other time, you're going to be very underwhelmed with.
I don't know if I believe that with that
Yeah,
time
right?
coming through. I think there's some carryover to some other things, but this is very humble of you to say.
To your point as well, through our mutual friend, when I got, I guess to backtrack a little bit, when I got introduced to more or less the GPP methodology and CrossFit as a whole, Ben introduced me via 300 cal echo. And so for whatever reason, I'm still doing this. I don't know. But
Oh, dude.
so to you,
Yeah, that's a both feet in the deep end type of introduction. That's nasty.
Can you give some folks like your 1-minute bio of what your soccer career has looked like so far?
yeah, I was born and raised in the Bay Area, Castro Valley, California, to be specific. Grew up playing soccer and a multitude of other sports through high school. Chose soccer, played at UC Berkeley, played for my hometown team, the San Jose Earthquakes. Kind of been around the league since then, and now full circle. I'm back playing in San Jose here again in 2025.
And Myself included, I did a little bit of research, just enough to be dangerous on soccer, because as astonishingly popular as that is as a worldwide and global sport, it's not quite in the US where it is in so many places outside the US. And so, you know, I didn't realize you guys had like a 9-month season, they said, like from late February, early March to sometime in December, and that covers about 34 games. Does that sound right for a typical season?
Yeah, the 34 game window is the strict season format. So, you'll get your seedings to go into playoffs, which will start there in sometime in October. And then within that time frame, they'll squeeze in a couple tournaments. So you could play anywhere from 5 to 15 more games plus playoffs. And obviously, you want to be playing as many as you can because that indicates success and wins. But yeah, you're playing anywhere from, 34 being the minimum plus, tournament games upwards of 40, 45 games, 50 for some teams a year. So it comes out to a couple games a week in that time frame. It's a long season, that's for sure, because we start.
That's what I was getting at. Sounds long.
Yeah, it's a long year, but it's on par with the rest of the world. The rest of the world will go a little bit different. They'll go from the fall all the way to late spring, and then have a couple weeks in the summer, maybe a couple days in Christmas holiday for some leagues. Others are playing right there on Boxing Day after. But it's a long year. It's a long year. It's not like football, 16, 17 games and you're out. When you're out and you kind of have the rest of the season to fend for yourself. So it's long as far as training goes in the off season too. It becomes an issue when you have to balance recovery and then strength building or whatever it is you want to do that year to perform for the next year, be ready.
That's all the stuff that as we're interested in getting to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say with such a short off season, like what do you end up prioritizing within that? I mean, obviously you still have to keep your skill sets somewhat fresh, but with that kind of constant churn, is that even something that you really need to sharpen up during that time? Or do you kind of use the early season, preseason to start ramping back up and keep the skill set sharp, and the off season is reserved for some other, maybe GPP or whatever? Or is it the other way where skill is really, really such a priority that becomes even more a focus with less of the other volume that you're doing in that off season? Like, how do you guys prioritize that?
I think every individual is different. Every team's different. Movement in the off seasons definitely affects a lot. But I think the first and foremost, you look at the best players in the world, and I think soccer is similar to, let's say, basketball, right? Like if you could shoot a ball well, then you can shoot a ball well, and you can be the best player in your own discipline. Soccer, similarly, you have Messi, for example, who's not the fastest, not the biggest, not the strongest, not physically more dominant than anyone, but he's the best player in the world because of what he can do with his feet. So,
Mm.
you do skill wise and on the ball, you know, that can trump everything. And that could be what you solely focus on, pending your position and role on the team and whatnot. But, I think there's so much more, and there's so many different players or in positions on the field that, everyone has a different role. And, that's not me. I'm far from the most skilled guy. And so for me, I think, and what I've learned over my career, that availability is the best attribute you can have. And so I've taken that philosophy that if I can be available, if I can be healthy, if I can be strong, fit, fast for, 4 years in a row, 5 years in a row, if your injuries are minor and, you have a muscle injury, but you can recover fast because you have done the work prior, so that during and then after you can speed up that recovery time and be back, then yeah, that's for me, that's the best. Because as soon as I'm not there, next guy up mentality. You know how it is. You've operated in a high octane world that anyone can do the job. A lot of guys can do the job. So you got to be available to show that you're the guy. But I think with that philosophy, I go into every offseason a little different. Every offseason is different. Sometimes it's, man, that ear, whooped me, and I'm going to take a little bit of rest right away. That's been a couple years. But for the most part, once season ends, I like to kind of take the fitness that I've gained from the year, if I'm not too tired, the nervous system and whatnot, to put some muscle on, strength train, maybe train a little harder, higher intensity, because I know that I'm fit for it. I can get the numbers and the times or whatever it is that I want right then and there. And I also know that if you get out earlier and you do have time to train, Thanksgiving and Christmas are coming up, so I'm probably gonna relax a little bit more, go see family, friends, whatnot, probably have a drink or two, and put my feet up, whether in the mountains or somewhere more tropical with friends and family. But it varies. I think this year was we got out pretty early. Unfortunately, we didn't make playoffs. But for example, I really hit strength work once the season ended and did a lot of more like Metcon work, CrossFit type work because I wasn't doing much during the year. I was just trying to stay fit. And so I got to do, I call it the fun work, the work that's not exactly ball sport specific. But I got to text Ben there and say, hey, what are we going to do today? Let's get after it. And so, go whiskey throttle for a couple of weeks there and then really let the nervous system cool down and take a break. And then as I'm ramping up, I just really touch a ball to get my feet under me and kind of keep that consistent. And then zone 2 work, man. Zone 2 work, just long, steady state bike rides, runs to complement those. And then I'll start tailoring a little more, day by day, which we can get into more specifics. But as of late, I've done ball work and the zone 2 work and 2 or 3 times a week. I'll hit a high speed and go, 90, 95, 100% shorter sprints, but just trying to get back into it now and get my feet under me.
Yeah. Well, you mentioned, the fact that you enjoy strength training and doing things that maybe when you're in season full swing, you're not able to do quite as much due to the demands of how often you're playing. Is that, and I recognize that like every athlete's going to be a little bit different. All their scenarios are going to be, kind of unique to them. But is it common in the world of professional soccer to have any interest in cross training like that? Or is it still kind of relatively siloed in the sense that there's kind of quote unquote a way to train and people don't like to break out from that? Or is it a little bit more, I don't know, open-minded, I suppose, these days?
I wouldn't say it's open-minded. It's far, between stubborn and stuck in the old ways and open-minded. It's somewhere in the middle, also depending on your strength coach and the coach and what they value. I definitely am one of the few that is into the cross training and kind of doing a multi-joint functional movement kind of thing, let's say, and really vary in what I do. Whereas a lot of guys will do a lot of accessory work, isometric work. I think there's a value in being strong and good at those things, but as and why I do what I do, I enjoy it. I like learning, and I like learning from guys like yourself or whom I get my workouts from as well. And so it's I think that you can always be better and off the field. We have so much time as a professional athlete. I think a big reason why I've gotten into it is because we get done at 1, we have so much time the rest of the day. If you play on a Saturday cadence, then you have 5 days to train, whether it be heavy earlier in the week or midweek, and then kind of taper and get ready for the game. There's so much time to improve, and injury is such a big thing. So if you can offset that by training, then yeah, it's I found value in that. More or less staying healthy, but again, that's a chance thing, and anything can happen in any game or training. That is, as I've experienced both, but just do my part in that regard. But yeah, the training's fun. If you can get in 2 sessions a day, it's your job. So I find it entertaining, and I always try to throw a ball in at the end, but I guess you can call it, I'm a little bit of a meat missile in my world. So
I'm curious if you could walk me through as like a total novice to soccer, because I'm always fascinated when we talk to anybody who's outside of like the typical, they're a CrossFit athlete, they go to the CrossFit games, blah, blah, blah. Like when we talk to somebody who's just a power lifter, just an Olympic lifter, they've got their specialty. And so I've heard this from other disciplines, but never from soccer. You said something along the lines of like, first of all, it's a long season, 34 games or ish. So I have to assume that you're constantly in some sort of state of traveling, which is a difficult way to live and eat and sleep in time zones and all that. And you said something along the lines of like that you'll do your lifting or some more high intensity stuff in the off season, and during the season, you're just like staying fit, or you said something along those lines. So I'm curious, like, as I'm totally ignorant to it, could you talk me through like, what do you mean by that? Like, during that 9 months, are you just playing so many soccer games so frequently that you don't have to do anything else? Or do you train during the season? If so, what does that look like? And then how does that similar or different to what you do in the off season?
Yeah, well, I think a good way to answer that would be each team's schedule, kind of our cadence. If you play a Saturday game, um, pretty consistently for that 9-month time frame, some weeks it's going to be a Saturday game. You're training up Saturday or for the Saturday game. Again, it's a set time and date and place, so you know all that, so you can prepare
Mm,
for it. Let's call it Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, from a reintro day on Monday to probably a shorter sprint day, um, to playing a bigger soccer game, longer distances on a Wednesday. Wednesdays are more kind of a lighter day, and then Friday's a day before a game. So you're gonna, do short bouts, get a good sweat, but just prep for the game, and then play Saturday. That's a typical schedule for soccer, and then sprinkled in there for most teams I've been on, you'll get a Tuesday or a Wednesday lift, and they're sectioned off in an upper body lift one day to a lower body lift another day, depending on the team. You can flip those days back and forth.
interesting. Okay.
Kind of how it works in the soccer world, at least here in the States. Most teams are kind of on that cadence. Some teams will have an optional lift on a Thursday and a Friday, usually some upper body stuff, some band stuff, like those Kaiser machines. And so when I say that during the season, you just want to stay fit, yeah, from those games, like what you've done, or competing in CrossFit, you only get game fit from games. And so you can't replicate. You can go run a million miles, or you can do, this, that, and the other, but you'll never be ready to play a game until you've played, 5 to 10 games, and you get game fit, and you
Mhm.
get ready for the unknown in the games, meaning the sprinting and the change of direction, and, reacting to the ball, and then obviously the technical work and all that kind of stuff. So, you can do whatever you want, but games are what keep you fit. So in the meantime, what I like to do is shorter metcons, maybe in that world, the 21-15-9 of sorts,
Gotcha.
kind of those length things, not as short as a Fran expert time, but maybe, up to 5 to 8 minutes, where I'm really hitting that stimulus. Um, but, I'm not training and overtraining for an extra hour a day where my nervous system is shot, and I'm dragging come game day, you know?
Right. Sure.
Yeah, correct. And I think that has been a good maintenance tool, right? So if I hit that stimulus with certain lifts, or different movements, right, involved in those, or EMOM sometimes if I want to do some strength conditioning, longer ones with more rest involved during the week, just to maintain strength. And then some days I'll lift heavy, but more in the range of 85 to 90%. I'm not normally trying to set a PR or max anything in the year, but I'm pretty consistent in doing 3 to 5 lifts a week. And but also it's just, again, as it's adaptation. You can't just go and do 5 extra lifts every week, day one. Week
Hmm.
one. I've done it for my whole career, more or less. Maybe not, but prior to meeting Ben, it was different lifts on my own, and probably more, your big 4 lifts kind of
So
thing.
you'll do 3 to 5 lifts a week during the season.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, and are you a bit of an anomaly in that regard compared to your teammates?
Um, yeah, I don't. Not a whole lot of guys like to do that kind of stuff, but I find that you can't really overtrain, but you can under recover. And so I'm also huge on the recovery aspect. And so, I like to you have to, otherwise you're just going to wear and tear, and get hurt. But yeah, I think it's a great way to spend my time. Kind of off topic in that regard. When I lift at home, my wife will lift with me, and now my daughter gets to come and watch. And, you just set good examples. And so it's fun, and it's not just something I do for work, but it's a fun, almost a stress outlet as well, but also something, most important, something that works and is beneficial, and you find results on game day from it.
I'll leave you with one more thing that you can take wherever you want to take, and then um, I'll pass it back over to you, Boz. This is just me being totally ignorant on many, many topics, just a casual observer. But it's funny, when we talk to different people, there are certainly differences in various sports, disciplines, whatever it is. But I'm often shocked by a lot of the similarities, whether it's soccer, football, baseball, and where I'm going with this is, it seems like when you mentioned there's stuck between the stubborn or how we used to do business, and then some folks are willing to push the limits. I don't want to paint with a broad brush, but that's exactly what I'm about to do. It seems like, you've got professional soccer players, professional baseball players, or you're the strength and conditioning coach at a D1 school. And it almost seems like for a lot of those entities, the goal is not so much, let's make these athletes as ferociously fit, fast, and strong as we can. It's don't mess them up. We're gonna have some kid gloves on. This stuff, I don't know if it's the best way to make people into animals, but we've been doing it for decades, and so we've kind of accepted whatever the injury rate is and success. So I'm not going to rock the boat and do something different, because it might work, but there's a risk that it might not. And then you have other programs that are like, hey, we are going to try. We've never Olympic lifted. We're going to try it. We're never whatever. Like, hey, if we add one more session to our guys that normally do an upper body and a lower body week, will that one session actually be beneficial or detrimental? We won't know till we try, but a lot of them don't try. Am I on base, off base with that? What's your experience been?
Yeah, I think no, I think you hit the nail on the head there. It's pretty common across all sports in the US, at least from talking to other athletes, from the NHL to the MLB.
So if you're going to try something, it's like on the athlete level more than their strength and conditioning coach level, so
Correct.
to speak.
Correct. I think a lot of it has to do with, from the strength coach level, I find value in many strength coaches and their knowledge and what they are. A lot of them,
Of course.
a lot of them are great, but I think there's more exposure for them, maybe to get fired or, for accountability.
There's a risk.
If they do things that, hurt the athletes, or an athlete has a sore back from hey, we're going to teach you how to deadlift properly with a straight bar because we want to do a little more posterior chain activation, right? So, but instead we're just going to stick with our, our elevated high bar pull and, just keep hammering what we're doing, for example, that's what we do in soccer. And so there's a pull from like a 40% descent deadlift. And so I always ask the question, but guys just don't want to expose the athletes to injury, because then there's accountability for everything. And I don't think that's always the reason, but it sounds like from what you're hearing and what I've heard that more times than not, that's probably having something to do with it. I won't say it's the reason, but it definitely has a factor in it. But yeah, but there's also a world and people that have seen these methodologies and other ways that athletes have trained in the off season with, exponential gains and just becoming a better athlete and all around performer. So guys are open-minded, but it's definitely takes place on the athlete level. Athletes are, I think it's athlete to athlete. And I've brought a couple guys along by, seeing what I do. But at the same time, it's not, no guy does what I do and I don't do what anyone else does, even on, the team level. No guy has the same form or is built the same way. And so everyone needs, different adaptations to what they do and different coaching and different cues. And so, but I think that there's a need on that staff level or the trainer level for, bringing the athletes up to, I think, their potential. Whereas I think soccer right now in the US is in such a growth phase with, very different areas. Right. Just as as you've heard, World Cup's coming, this, that, and the other. MLS is growing. They're looking abroad. They're, sometimes domestically. There's big players in the US now, amazing players playing over and some playing here as well. So, their focus is elsewhere. I think that's definitely on the back burner right now. But I think, guys are going to get a step up when they learn of these ways to improve availability and then strengths. It just makes you a better and performer for longer, right? I think one of the things is that I've noticed is I can perform at the same level and do the same thing physically that I could when I was 20, if not better. But that's me. A lot of guys are just better with the ball too, and they're like, yeah, I'm making my living that way. So, but good on you. But yeah, definitely, I think you're correct in that it takes place on the athlete level.
Interesting. Okay.
Well, so that being said, is there ever any pushback or like discouragement from kind of pursuing your own methods? Do you ever have like resistance to you going on your own and pursuing these kind of things that may not be as popular or just not known about? Like, has there ever been a time where somebody comes to you and says, hey, man, I don't think you should be doing this? Or is it kind of more hands off and results oriented where, hey, if you're still performing what you're supposed to on the field, you're showing up and doing the job well, they're like, hey, the result's there, so we're not going to rock the boat.
I've seen it go both ways. Sometimes, I've been pushed, hey, do what you do because it's working. You're playing well, you're strong, you're fit, you're healthy, all that. You recovered well from an injury. And I think it's due to what you've done prior, as I discussed a little earlier. But then there's been other times where, for example, I got hurt a muscle tissue injury a couple years back, and the first thing to blame was my way of training.
There you go.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was, because it just puts the accountability elsewhere. And I was like, oh, well, it might have had something to do with the first time I've played for 3 months straight in 100-degree weather for every single day plus, and I didn't know what electrolytes were at the time. And so, that might have been why a full sprint caused me to tear a hammy, at the end of the game. But
Right.
it could have been my training,
Right.
So yeah, I've seen both sides, but usually everyone wants to figure it out and find a reason as to why, or at least find a plan and collaborate that you can work on together. But it has been frustrating. It's rewarding, especially, as when people have difference in opinion, having the conversation and working it out, whether you can meet in the middle or maybe someone you see and you're open-minded and you can come a little more to their side and actually agree with them or vice versa. I like it because most of the times those people that I have conversations with are the ones who are experienced and have had a lot of time in the league and at their role. And so I am learning a lot in the process too. And so I'm not, saying no, my way or the highway kind of thing.
Yeah.
It's, unfortunately, those conversations usually get heated after injury. So it's not a good time for it. But at the same time, you learn from them. And it's been beneficial in that regard. But yeah, there's been, I've definitely had some blame, but also, some praise for the way I've recovered from certain things, just because injuries happen as well. You can get injured in the gym, probably not as easily as you can get injured, on game day or in a game or when you actually have to perform. So it's that part also, I always scratch my head at as to, oh, you might get injured in the gym. Well, you're probably going to get injured in the game, at one point. So it's not it's not if, it's when. But that's just me.
Is there any, generally speaking, like you said, each program is a bit different. They've got their tolerances. Maybe each strength and conditioning coach has their freedoms and their liberties and whatnot. But are there any things that you'd feel comfortable saying are generally embraced or discouraged with regards to classic strength and conditioning in the world of professional soccer? And what I mean by that is, like when we talk to somebody in the football realm, depending upon the football coach that we talk to, some of them love the deadlift. Some of them see it as a way to injury, so they actually don't deadlift, they just do glute ham raises. Talk to a baseball coach, depending on who you're talking to, we're not going to lift overhead because we're going to mess up our guys' shoulders or they're going to get tight, and that's not good. And other people are like, no, we're going to go overhead to strengthen the shoulder and open up the joint and do it. And so there's this big discrepancy. Are there some things that just, I could walk around a gym in for a major league soccer facility, and would I expect to see cleans or deadlifts or like full range of motion back squats, or or there's something like, no, you wouldn't see those. You'd probably see these instead.
Yeah, you won't see most Olympic lifts, anything overhead.
Oh,
Clean,
no overhead. Okay.
probably in most places, no. But I think again, it goes back to just the teaching. And most guys don't come from a background of where they clean. I'm one of the few who also played football and ran track in high school, and that's where I learned how to do these lifts. It wasn't from a soccer gym, and so. But I was even taught incorrectly and got hurt at times from it, so I had to relearn.
Sure.
And, I think that's the scare as well, which I do agree with, because there's probably going to be more work and maybe more detrimental to teach some guys who just aren't going to get it, and they're going to be hurt more often than not from trying to learn this new lift, and they're going to not be available on the field. So yeah, in that regard, there's definitely an argument, but yeah, you won't see those kind of lifts in a soccer.
Okay, interesting.
Nor do I think, I think there's plenty of replacements for that, for probably a little more isometric lifts and isolated lifts for certain muscles and muscle groups.
Okay.
but again, a lot of soccer players aren't very physical either. In this, meaning they don't get really into shoulder to shoulder, or it's not a super contact above the waist form sport, which like it is to me. But at the same time, right? Guys can just be good on the ball and they avoid the contact for the most part, and so for them, they just don't see a need for it. And usually, those are the best players on the field. So who am I to talk?
Right. Interesting. Okay.
But yeah, it's
Fascinating.
pretty rare in soccer in the soccer world.
Huh. You mentioned that you're big on recovery. Would you mind talking about that a bit?
Yeah, there's so many different recovery methods and tools and ways to do it. But I think
Indeed.
the biggest thing is, whatever works for you is the best way or is the best thing, right? And so if I can spend as much time a day recovering, whether it be stretching in nice tubs or a sauna or a hot tub, prepping and warming up, or cupping or Graston, or just doing compression sleeves, right? Uh, I think that's great. And so I'll do all those mixed in kind of based on what I'm feeling. Ben actually introduced me to the tempering roller as well. I think that is worth its weight in gold as well, just for my back. But
What is that? Is that the weighted thing?
yeah, that weighted roller that you can just have someone roll down on your back, and man,
I've never used it.
I would highly recommend it. If yes, 100%. Anyone with muscle, I would really have that thing, man.
Interesting. Okay. What does it weigh? Do you know roughly?
You can get them different weights, but the one I have is the 110-pound one.
Oh, wow.
It's amazing. It clears you up just like that. Your back will crack more than any chiropractor's ever done to you.
That's incredible. Okay. Wow.
Awesome. It's
well,
awesome.
hey, like along the same lines, what do you recognize in yourself? Like, let's put you kind of mid-season, you're cranking along, you're playing a couple games a week, you're trying to do these auxiliary lifts. Obviously there's a certain point at which you get to a stage where you're like, all right, I've done a little bit too much. What are those signs that you recognize in yourself as an athlete when you say, okay, I need to pump the brakes a little bit here and back off so that I can be at full strength moving forward?
I think one of the great things in today's world of athletics is like the whoops and the Garmin's that you can monitor sleep and quality of sleep and all those things. Is you can match it to with how tired I am in the morning or whatnot. But if I know I got good sleep, I know I slept the same amount, or all my data is saying the same thing as well. Obviously, take it with a grain of salt at times as well, because you could sleep for 4 hours and it's like, wow, best recovery of your life. And like, I don't think so. But when I'm sleeping well and I'm doing these things, and some days, you're going to feel more tired than not. Most days, you're not going to want to go, run the marathon or work as hard as you can and whatnot. You always have your brain's always going to be telling you something. Hey, don't do this, don't do that. And so, I've learned to quiet that, but really listen to, maybe the performance in something and see how it is relative to how I've done in the past, or how that my concentration was on the soccer field. Was it easy for me? Am I thinking clearly enough? Am I seeing things that I should see? Is the technical part of my play where it should be? Obviously, throwing out the mistakes because I'm human and far from perfect, but because those happen. But just little things like that. Really, really reviewing each performance, whether it's on the soccer field or in the weight room, and I could be tired and I can want sleep or whatever some days, but just from years and years of experience, knowing my body, knowing that, hey, in 2 days, I'm going to have to go full 100%, 110% and with, full mental clarity and perform during the game. I can sleep more, do the crowd chamber or ice bath more. Those usually restart me pretty quickly and get the clarity back. But a lot of what I try to focus on is just the mental clarity and the thought and being able to react to the level I need to. It's not so much you're gonna have muscle fatigue during the week if you're training, if you're working hard, right? That just comes with it.
Sure. Yeah.
So, and I'm, the sleep is huge and the hydration is huge in those parts. So those are the things I focus on. It's also different. A lot of times it's just hot. I was playing in Texas for so long, and sometimes I just be and for you in Tennessee, sometimes it just be 100 degrees for a couple of days. And, I
Yeah.
took the baby to the park one day and, we were out there for an extra hour and 15 minutes. And man, I just woke up the next day and I was zapped. So, there's different things I'm going to have to do to get my nervous system right for the game. And maybe that's not lift or not do as much as I was going to do, or do it in an air conditioned room, right? Something like that. So yeah, it always changes, but as you know, it year by year, day by day, you learn yourself better. And
Yeah.
I'm making better choices, but still making just as many mistakes. In different
I mean, aren't we all? But yeah,
Amen
I
to
think one
that.
thing that's super useful for our listeners in that you said, I think it's really interesting that for you, it's like, okay, there's an acceptance that you're going to be tired at a certain point. That's just, hey, that's the nature of being a professional athlete. You're going to get tired. But the mental aspect, I think that is something that's universal when people start training, maybe a little bit more than they can recover from, is when you start feeling sluggish. To your point, the reaction time, even if you're not out there, playing soccer professionally or relying on that as part of your profession, I think that is a telltale sign that a lot of people that are into something physical don't necessarily link all of the time. So I think that's a valuable thing for a lot of people, regardless of their fitness level, regardless of whether they're just doing this to stay healthy and strong or trying to make a professional career out of it. It's like, hey, those little things matter. You have that brain fog, you have a difficult time processing information in a way that maybe wasn't a problem previously. That could be a sign that, hey, maybe you're biting off more than you can chew for the moment. That's interesting that you focus on that. And I think that's really, really wise, honestly.
For soccer, I think the cool thing about soccer is, you're going to play, let's say, at 7 p.m. and what the weather is going to be in San Jose, California on this date that week, and then for the next month or so. So you can really prepare and try to fine tune what you're doing for those, 90 minutes, let's call it, for, on the Saturday night. So it is easier in that regard. But as you're saying, to, the everyday athlete or competitor or, whatever world or discipline you're in, it might be a little harder, because for me, it's so set, so
Mm.
scheduled. And so I know the cadence of it. Um, and I guess that is one of the luxuries of having it that way, is I can really, get as detail oriented as I want in it. But I think sometimes, that also becomes a hurdle as well, because you have to work with what you got at that on that day sometimes. And the travel is another big thing that'll really throw that for a loop. You do all you can, and then
Yeah.
you off the plane, you
Yeah.
just like, oh boy, all right, here we go. So
What does nutrition look like for you?
um it very a lot of the same thing, right? Like your proteins in the morning, maybe some oatmeal and fruits, and scheduled meals, I would say, are the big thing, right? In the morning, more so when I'm training harder early in the week. Um, After trainings, right? We have everything at the facility, so you can kind of get everything you want and whatever, where you're at. The catering service brings that day, or the chef cooks up. And then at home, I'm always doing something, getting my protein in at home. And if I'm training, then getting it in right after I train. And then, um, you know, having a high protein, usually a high calorie meal at dinner, to really supplement the work that I've done, especially when I'm training heavier or more during the weeks. But my wife will tell you that I eat the same thing over and over and over and over. And I'm like, sorry, I could do that 365
Same.
a year.
100%.
He hates it. So does the baby. But we try to vary those for them.
100%.
After games, though, I think just from the breakdown, right? I just not some red meat, man. A steak. The only, if I'm going to say there's one thing that I do and that I'm like religious towards, is a nice steak after games, whether it's that night or the next night, but within the next 24 hours to really help with the recovery.
Oh,
I felt
Nice.
better in that
fantastic.
regard. But yeah, for the most part, just yeah.
Do you have a sweet tooth?
Oh, 100%. I don't know if you know about the little dark chocolate peanut butters from Trader Joe's, but or
Yes, sir, I do.
well, I'll go through like a box a week. Maybe not that much, but
They come in like a rectangular container.
they do. They,
Yep, yep.
they do. Those are my vice, and man, I'm probably half their business with that product. So, and unfortunately, I just introduced my daughter to them, and she every day wakes up saying chocolate now, and I'm like, no, Yeah.
Yep. Yep.
We're not going to have that every day. Well, Dad is, but you're not.
Right.
Not going to see me do it.
Oh, that's, yep. I've dealt with those as well. Um, I've only got a couple more questions for you. The next one is, you're married, you've got a little girl, you've got another child on the way, you need a lot going on. You're also a professional athlete where I've never been a professional athlete. I'm not a good athlete at all, actually. Any sort of ball sport, that is. But I have to assume the pressure is significant. Because a lot of us, if you work in an office job, if you do something stupid, maybe you did it in your cubicle and nobody saw it and you can just correct it. But if you're out there in the center of the field and all the cameras and the fans, like, I would assume that's a relatively high stress occupation. Do you have an easy time or a hard time leaving work at work, disconnecting that and just going home and, being with the family and leaving the game on the field?
Yeah, no, that's a good question. I think every athlete and every sport, it's different, right? Um, but I think actually since, my wife and the baby came along and now the other baby, it's been a lot easier to actually disconnect because you come home and you have those responsibilities and you can really focus and just be in the moment for those and what you need to do for your family. I think going to work sometimes, on the other side of that, right? You're going in, you feel the weight a little bit, you think about the family and whatnot. Hey, I have to perform or whatnot. Maybe it's there prior, but as long as you love what you do, once you get there, it kind of feels like you're a kid and you're just playing. I've been in a position where, man, I've growing up, I'm probably the third, fourth, fifth best kid on every team, and a lot of it has to do with luck, right? Right place, right time, right eyes on you. You make it to where you're at. But so I know that you got to show up every day, and that's also a fun part about it because it's another way of self accountability. That if you're not going to perform, then are you're probably not into it, or you're just not good enough. And so I've been blessed with enough luck and being in the right place and enough opportunity and good teammates and coaches around me that I can go out and just worry about the day to day performance and staying consistent in the games. And I've had a long enough career of a good career, but by no means ever the best or brightest player on any team in that regard. So but there's fun in that. I think there's a role there, and just being able to, hey, you have to be at your best every day. Well, for me, man, okay, great. I love that challenge because I have to be my best in order to, you know, hang in there with these guys that are so much more talented and gifted and younger, man, and faster and stronger and all these. It's crazy. We had a 16-year-old in our locker room last year who was getting minutes and starting.
What?
And you see the athleticism on these guys and the technique and to your point, the lack of care and thought, and they just go out and have fun. And you're just like, man, like, good for you. Enjoy it because one day it'll change for them. But they're in the right place, learning at a young age. Hopefully, they're the right mentors that they can deal with that in years to come. But yeah, I think there's a lot of growth in having to perform at my best every day and being all that I am. So I find it fun, but I don't find it easy. It's definitely hard.
Right.
Every day you got the demons telling you one thing or the other. But you just can put your head down and get to work, and that's a great part of it. So
Man.
family aspect, yeah, man, they're great because they definitely let you forget about it, or they'll let you know if you bring it home. Like hey, yeah, guess what? You play soccer? I don't care. Go make dinner.
Right. Yeah. Keep you humble right there.
Yeah, keep it grounded. It's good.
Boz, you got anything, man?
No, I mean, I just one more curiosity. You've kind of alluded to it a few times now. Like I love that mindset of just be available. I think that's in line with what a lot of Pat and I talk about. We're not super athletes. We've just been hanging around a long time. And now that we're a little bit older, you see people that don't take care of themselves. Like that gap between I'm 41 this year. The gap between the average guy that's 41 and somebody like me who, like, I've taken pretty good care of myself. Now there's a pretty big distinguishing gap between me and that person. Whereas before it's like, yeah, okay, you don't notice it as much as when you're young. I guess what I'm driving at here is a few times it makes it sound like your career has been pretty lengthy compared to others. Is that true? Or is that like, where would you kind of rate your longevity amongst, all the other players?
Yeah, I guess when you look in the big picture of it, right? Yeah, it's definitely been a longer one. I'm going on 9 years, signed a contract that can get me up to 11, and
Nice.
so
Yeah.
it's been a long career and you learn a lot, but yeah, I think the recovery aspect and just being available, right? It's the little things, the day-to-day things that you don't notice, in the
Hmm.
day-to-day, that it's going to take time, right? Watching grass grow, man, it just doesn't happen overnight kind of thing, or whatever. And so I've learned patience in that regard, to know that down the road it's going to pay benefits, and here I am seeing some of them, just staying healthy and able to perform.
Yeah.
But also a lot of it, man, it's who you hang out with, and who and the guys that you're learning from, because they can lead you astray or in the right direction. And I'm sure you guys know good and bad mentors and teachers and friends, and role
Mm-hmm.
models. It's just I've got lucky and got some good people in my corner that are still there, or that have come and gone, that I've learned good lessons from, and picked the right things and some of the wrong. But you know, the right things to try to emulate and prioritize in my career. So that's been a cool thing too, because a lot of what I do is just repeated from a bunch of different people and kind of tailored more towards me. But hey, I'm still kicking. I'm still going.
Yeah.
There's still a heartbeat. But yeah, like you said, it's the little things that'll pay big on the back end, right? As you said,
Yeah.
41, probably performing at some of your best, your best in some aspects, right?
Yeah, I mean, well, yeah, last year was a rough year. We'll not my best, but climbing back up,
But like you
and
said, compared to your cohort of 41 year
yeah.
olds.
Yeah.
Hey, I got the rest of my life to keep getting better. But hey, Nick, last thing from me is you mentioned, hey, it's hard to watch the grass grow because it takes a long time. That's another thing Pat and I harp on is like, look, man, some of this stuff takes time. You can't just expect it to happen overnight. Do you have any advice to younger athletes that have a hard time seeing that? They struggle
Mm.
with, hey, it's got to happen now. Like, how did you develop that mentality? Or do you have any words of wisdom for younger athletes when they're having those moments where, like, dude, it's got to happen yesterday?
Yeah, I think one of the things I heard from a coach, he always said, look big to see small. And so, meaning, in a soccer game, scan the field big, and then you'll see the short pass, right? And I've kind of take that and extrapolated from that, um, and said that, okay, I have my long-term goals. So if I'm going to set my long-term goals wherever, right, to be 41 and be just as mobile and fit as I am today when I'm 30, then okay, great. What am I going to do? I'm going to do one thing, meaning I'm going to stretch or do my recovery. That's part of that long-term process in the big picture for the long run. But then I want to do something that I can feel a actual gain from today, and it's going to be, that short run, or I'm going to go kick a soccer,
Mm.
right? Microcosm for that. I'm going to go, kick the soccer ball 100 times, and I'm going to try to put it in, across, at the top of the box, at, we'll call it head height for a guy who's like 6 foot. Right. And so I'm going to do that. And probably over those 100 balls, I'm going to see a real, improvement by that. And so that's going to be the thing that's tangible today. Because I'm the same way, man. I get super impatient. I want results right now, as with I'm sure most dudes,
For sure.
everyone does.
Yeah.
And if
Everybody struggles with
yeah,
that time to
yeah,
time,
yeah,
you know?
but at the same time, like I think part of it too is that, man, I don't do social media anymore, so the instant gratification is definitely subsided, and I'm able to I think, and be a
Good for
little
you.
impulsive, um, as far as what I want and seeing results right away. So that I can think a little more, or I don't know, maybe the subconscious, and maybe it affects you somewhere in there. But I always do something tangible that I can feel, whether it's today or tomorrow or within a week, right? And then I do something every day alongside that I'm going to have the long term gain from, and it's going to be different in every discipline, and in every whatever you do. But that's kind of my 2 cents on that. But it's fun, it's challenging. I also have the time. It's my job. So, but it goes for family as well, right? Finances to set your kids up for college, a little here, and then get them the little chocolates today. You're right, and make them happy
Sure.
today.
Yeah.
But you have that college fund for the future too. So it's yeah, that's kind of all I got there.
Oh, I love that, man. Thanks for sharing.
Very cool. Nick, man, I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you kind of giving us a window into a world that we haven't explored before. I found it really fascinating. So thank you for being so open about that.
Yeah, no worries. I appreciate you guys even considering having me on. Soccer is definitely different in that, right? I think, I do love it. I grew up soccer guy, and I think at the end of the day, if you're good with the soccer ball, man, you can go as far as you want. If there's soccer players listening and whatnot, all the other stuff is just it's bonus, and there's the benefits as we talked about. But soccer's unique in that, if you pitch a ball well, you can be the best pitcher in the world and go win a World Series and be
Hmm.
the MVP. If you kick a soccer ball well, you can do the same. But all those other things just make a better athlete, better human, and yeah, they just help. But it's soccer's cool, it's unique, it's fun, and it's growing, man. I'm excited to see where soccer can go and where it is in my lifetime. So.
Well, we don't have any soccer players in my family, but in all honesty, our little girl, who she'll be 4 this year, and she's doing gymnastics right now. But our goal is to, I think, when it's 4 is the youngest, starting that you could start to play like little kids soccer. And we're gonna get her in the little soccer league and have her start that. So we'll see about.
That's awesome.
Yeah, yeah.
That's,
So
that's awesome.
it should be
Soccer's the
pretty
one
cool.
thing my kid doesn't do right now.
Well, hey, you never know, but again, man, thank you so much. Yeah, genuinely appreciate it. And like I say at the end of all these shows, for anybody watching or listening, we appreciate you. If you've got ideas for a future show, a future guest, a future topic, or whatever, we want to hear from you. You can find this episode on the btwb YouTube channel. Post your thoughts, comments, or recommendations. We read all those comments. Or you can go to the Very Not Random Instagram account. You can post a message under any of our posts, or if you want to be more anonymous, you can send a direct message for a thought or idea for a future show, and we get all that information. So for Nick and Adrian, I'm Pat, and we will see you next time.
Thanks, guys.